And it breaks my heart to hear other introverts say they want to overcome it or that they're at a disadvantage because they're introverted. So my journey with really embodying who I'm here to be, which 100% is rooted in my introversion and from working with other introverts, it's led me to see 4 distinct stages of introvert awareness and ultimately acceptance. Hello, Vicki Regina here, and today I'm really excited to talk with you about what I call the 4 stages of introvert awareness and acceptance. One thing I found as I talk to people is that 1, not all introverts realize they're introverted, and 2, those that do don't really always understand what it means. So the 4 stages of introvert awareness and acceptance provides a roadmap of going from seeing introversion as a disadvantage to seeing it as your greatest asset. So when you understand the 4 stages, then you're going to recognize where you are in the process and you're going to feel inspired to take action to move you further along because you're going to be able to see the big picture, the opportunities. So in this episode, I'm going to share my journey with learning to embrace and embody my own introverted nature. And then I'll introduce you to the 4 stages of introvert awareness and acceptance. And finally, once you're aware of where you fall in that spectrum, I'm going to give you some pointers on what you can do for each stage to help you move to the next. All right. So let's dive in. Okay, so growing up, I was not only introverted, I was also painfully shy. Now, introversion and shyness are not the same thing, okay? Not all introverts are shy, and even though a lot of people use those terms interchangeably, it's not the case. So I grew up not enjoying large social groups. I didn't love big parties. I still don't, if I'm being honest with you. And I had friends, but it was more of a smaller circle of close friends. So not like a huge social network. And because of my shyness, speaking up in class and having to do class presentations, those were always very, very stressful for me. So I grew up like a lot of introverts, feeling like there was something wrong with me. And thankfully, my parents never tried to force me to be more social or more outgoing, but I do remember feedback on my report cards about needing to participate more or, that I should speak up more in class. And I always felt so frustrated by that because that just wasn't something that I felt like I could do. So that sort of feedback just made me feel even more self-conscious about it. And it just fed those feelings that there was something wrong with me, that I needed to change who I knew myself to be acceptable to my teachers. Now, fast forward to college, and I kind of did my own thing. I didn't do the party scene. I didn't have a super active social life. I mean, to be honest with you, I went to a pretty competitive college. And so I was mostly studying. I had an academic scholarship and I didn't have a college fund. So I had to keep my focus on my studies. So in that situation, my introversion really paid off. It actually really helped me out. After college, though, in my first job out of college, all of my coworkers were also right out of college, and everyone had moved to, the city where this company was located. So we all just kind of hung out with each other, and that is actually where I felt like I had more of that college social experience than I actually had in college. So it was parties all the time. We would go to this restaurant bar right across the street every Friday night after work. Sometimes we'd close the place down. Sometimes it'd just be the first stop before going somewhere else. I also had roommates that were also my coworkers. So it was a very, very social time of my life. And I didn't want to be left out. So I put that fake extrovert mask on and joined them while usually just wishing I could go home and go to bed. So those years really formed that extrovert mask, especially since my job was also very visible and very, very people oriented. Now, looking back, I don't know how I did it. But at that point, I'd been doing it to some extent my entire life, right? Because that's what I'd been conditioned to believe was quote unquote normal. So fast forward to my 30s, and with everyone getting married and having kids and moving away, the very active social scene had died down. So I got my own place, didn't have roommates, and for the first time ever, I felt like I could breathe, and it was wonderful. So at that point, that's when I started to explore honoring my solitude and my need for quiet solitude. In my mid-30s, I began a 4-year relationship with a man who wasn't an introvert. He had a serious case of FOMO with his social circles, parties, and events. He didn't understand what it meant to be introverted, and he really wasn't open to learning about it in spite of me trying to teach him about it. So that was a pivotal phase in my journey because I eventually got really angry and resented the fact that I was essentially made to feel guilty if I needed or wanted time alone. So that relationship taught me how to fight for my needs and to really stand up for myself. So once that relationship ended for obvious reasons, I went on a journey of basically learning to love and accept myself just in general. But from this phase, I wholeheartedly embraced my introversion and found a passion for all things introverted. So I became a cheerleader of introversion. And I knew I had to focus my coaching around this because it was such a calling in me. And now I feel like I'm an ambassador or a champion for introverts and what introverts need to thrive because I believe being an introvert is seriously the most amazing thing ever. And it breaks my heart to hear other introverts say they want to overcome it or that they're at a disadvantage because they're introverted. So my journey with really embodying who I'm here to be, which 100% is rooted in my introversion and from working with other introverts, it's led me to see four distinct stages of introvert awareness and ultimately acceptance. And that's what I want to share with you today. All right, so the four stages of introvert awareness. Now, stage one, I call the quiet chameleon. Stage two is the quiet imposter. Stage three is the quiet cheerleader. And stage four is the quiet champion. So stage one, the quiet chameleon, is a stage of unawareness. Stage two, the quiet imposter, is a stage of disconnection. Stage three, the quiet cheerleader, is a stage of awakening. And stage four, the quiet champion, is a stage of embodiment. So let's take a look at each of these stages in a little bit more detail. So let's start with the first one, the quiet chameleon. So in this stage, the defining characteristic is this lack of awareness around being an introvert or what that means. So people in this stage feel like they're different, like there's something wrong with them. They tend to harshly judge what they see themselves or what they see lacking in themselves in comparison to extroverts. In fact, they pretty much always view themselves through this lens of comparison where they always come up short. They don't see the advantages or the gifts they have because of being an introvert. They dismiss those and they only see what they perceive, again, as disadvantages. So when you're in this stage, you're wearing that extrovert mask all the time. You're always trying to pretend to be something else, more outgoing and more social, or you completely avoid social situations because you essentially shut down and don't even bother because you think you can't do it right. Now, because of this, there's a pretty strong lack of self-esteem and confidence. There's virtually no trust in yourself. So you look externally for guidance and acceptance and permission. Usually you're exhausted energetically, emotionally, and eventually even physically, because wearing that mask and fighting your nature, it takes a lot of energy to do that. And the overwhelming desire here is to be someone else, to figure out how to overcome this, to fix it. So this is a very uncomfortable stage to be in, even if it's comfortable from the perspective of, well, this is just what I know and how it always is. It's uncomfortable because there's a lot of energy being wasted and there's a lot of self-judgment and self-deprecation. Now, the key to moving out of this stage is to be open to what it actually means to be an introvert and not focus on the negative, the lack, the not good enoughness that you may be used to. Okay, so let's jump to stage two, the quiet imposter. Now, in this stage, you identify as an introvert. You recognize that, you know what it is, even though you still may be under the influence of all of that prior conditioning. So you probably still believe that you're at a disadvantage because you believe this is just an extrovert world and it's nothing you can do about it, right? So you're in awareness, but you're in a different state of awareness. But you're disconnected from what it really means to be introverted, you're disconnected from your own gifts and your strengths and your uniqueness as an introvert. You probably still wear that extrovert mask because that's what you know. But unlike in stage one, you do take it off from time to time when you feel like it's safe for you to do so. So in this stage, there's still some self-judgment, there's still some exhaustion, and there may even still be a desire to figure out how to overcome this, but it's not as strong as in stage one. There is more acceptance here, but I like to say it's reluctant acceptance, if that makes sense. So to move out of this stage, it requires more understanding of what it actually means to be introverted. But the key here is to explore a new perspective on introversion, where it's not a limiting quality. Okay. All right. So let's move on to stage 3. And this is the quiet cheerleader. This is where we start to turn a corner. Now, in this stage, this marks a change in your attitude about yourself. This is where you start to enjoy being an introvert. Your self-acceptance has blossomed into self-love. So this is where I like to say you experience a sense of an awakening. This is where you recognize the gifts of being an introvert and you celebrate them. It's where you set boundaries to honor your energy, which is so important. This is where you see your own gifts and you recognize those gifts as because you're an introvert. So here you start speaking up for your needs, but sometimes that still feels really hard. It's not necessarily natural for you yet. So you may still feel guilty for asking for what you need. But you're open and you're curious about how to structure your life to feel less exhausting and to continue embracing who you are. Now, moving out of this stage requires attaining a new level of self-acceptance for those introverted qualities and needs as you continue to stand up for yourself without guilt or justification. All right, so let's now take a look at the final stage, the quiet champion. Now, in this stage, this is where I like to say you enjoy being fully embodied in who you are. No masks, no excuses, no guilt, no justification. The well, it just is what it is shifts from being about the extrovert world and feeling like you just have to adjust to it to being about how you are wired and your needs, your well-being. So your needs and your well-being, well, that just is what it is. And you know to take care of it. So you're at peace with being an introvert and you know how to use those unique gifts to experience joy and simplicity and freedom. So you thrive in this stage. And not only do you speak up for your needs and confidence, and again, no guilt, you educate others on what it means to be an introvert because you love it so much and you recognize how important it is for others to understand that so that they understand you. You honor your flow of energy. You restructure your life to nourish your introverted soul. And again, this is where you thrive. This is where life takes on a whole new level of joy and abundance. So when you are aware of these stages of awareness and acceptance, you have a roadmap to decondition yourself from the misguided teachings of our society. And once that happens, you begin the beautiful journey of embodying who you're here to be in the way that you're meant to be. So this is a journey of personal freedom. Many introverts never discover the joy of this full acceptance of who they are. But knowing this path is available to you allows you to consciously choose a more aligned way to live and to be. And that is what's going to move you from stage to stage to stage. All right, so hopefully after hearing about each of these stages, I hope that you have an idea of where you fall. So to wrap this up, let's talk about what you need to do in each of the stages to start that process of lovingly moving to the next stage. So if you find yourself in stage 1, the quiet chameleon, then the next step is to start educating yourself on what introversion actually means. A great place to start that is with the book Quiet by Susan Cain, but you can also head over to my website, to my blog, where you're going to find deep dive insight into introversion from an empowered perspective. So that's the first step. Just be open and curious about a different way to view introversion. When you learn more about what introversion actually means, you can start to challenge the conditioning and begin unraveling all of those disempowering beliefs. Now, if you find yourself in stage 2, the quiet imposter, then the next step is actually twofold. So first, much like moving out of stage 1, it's going to be important to learn more about what it actually means to be introverted. But one extra thing that you can do in this stage is to start looking for the advantages in being introverted. So analyze your strengths. Look for role models that show you that it's not something that you need to fix or hide from. There are a lot of famous people who are introverts, and if you believe introversion is a limitation, you're going to be surprised to see who else out there is in fact introverted. Now, if you find yourself in stage 3, well, that's where you're ready to bloom into full embodiment. It's right there at your fingertips. If you're in stage 3, you're already doing what you need to do. So keep doing it. Keep prioritizing your needs, especially those energetic needs. Keep setting boundaries and enforcing those boundaries. The more you do this, the more you're going to build that muscle memory, and the more it's going to become embodied and natural for you. Now, if you're already in stage 4, enjoy and go share the love with other introverts. Teach them what it means. Teach extroverts what it means. Be an ambassador for all of our fellow introverted souls, and then go thrive. All right, so where are you on this journey? I would love to hear from you. To hear where you are. And if you need help moving between these stages, this is my passion. It's what I do with my clients. So if you feel called to do so, you can schedule a complimentary introvert awareness and expansion call with me. And not only will we explore how we can work together to get you into that embodiment place, I'll help you learn how to recognize the conditioning that holds you hostage right now. I'll help you see how your introversion is actually helping you in your life right now, so you can see the gifts and fall in love with it. And finally, I'll help you start giving yourself permission to do things your way. So I'm going to leave a link for that below, and I hope to chat with you soon. And I'll see you in the next episode.